I'm here today to talk about pleasure and how important of a piece it is in healing our relationship with our bodies and coming to have a new view of food and what it means to truly nourish ourselves. I feel like the pleasure principle is something that is often overlooked in intuitive eating. And it's such a key, critical piece to whether you'll really be able to transition from being somebody who had the diet mentality, was constantly at war with your body, always feeling like you have to exercise this incredible control around food or around exercise, the way you move your body, all because of trying to reach some sort of rigid ideal you have in your mind, as opposed to sinking into the wisdom of your body and really leaning into how your body feels, what makes your body feel good, what gives you that feeling of happy tummy after you have a meal, when you get that little dance going in your seat and you just feel so satisfied. Like pleasure and satisfaction are ultimately linked, and this piece is super important, especially when we're looking at something like intuitive eating, okay? Because we've been told by and large, by the diet industry that pleasure is somehow something that needs to be avoided if you want to have a healthy body. And there's a lot of stuff that's kind of pushed on us as being required, in order to come into a place of balance in our bodies. And first of all, I just want to say on that, what is the ideal we're shooting for? Because if we're looking at the images that are perpetuated by the diet and beauty industry, we're really going to struggle and we're going to have a hard time because a lot of these images are unrealistic. And we've really learned that. There's been a lot of exposure on this in recent years, just coming through on social media, the use of filters, the way you can pose your body, change your positioning, to give an entirely different appearance of what you actually look like. And so we have a lot of, in particular, I feel for the young people coming up. When I was growing up in the 80s, we had the fashion magazines and those distortions, of course, but we didn't have this influence with social media where there was such this illusion of perfection. I can only imagine how hard that would have been for me as a young girl and seeing these images, trying to live up to these images. And I very much used to have a very unhealthy relationship with food and my body. I struggled with eating disorder, when I was younger, through most of my youth, actually, all through my teen years and into my early 20s, when I had a serious eating disorder crisis, okay? So I know about this and what it's like to really inflict harm on yourself in the pursuit of achieving an ideal. So that's kind of the first place we need to begin when we're approaching intuitive eating and why we are looking to change our relationship with food and our body. Because if it's really about trying to reach this unrealistic ideal and not letting your body have a say in what actually feels right for you, where is your happy resting place in terms of your body's size? Where can your body naturally maintain its weight without having to, exhibit any kind of rigidity or overly restrictive measures, without having to deny yourself things that you enjoy, foods that you enjoy, pleasures that you enjoy. I mean, food is meant to be a pleasure. If you're truly nourished, you will have pleasure in your meals. You're not sitting there trying to, gulp down something that tastes awful, that you have no desire to eat, but you've been told it's the answer to, your weight woes. A lot of people come to intuitive eating because they, have been on and off diets all of their lives. They know all about deprivation. They know all about restriction. They know all about denying themselves the foods that they love in favor of trying to reach some aesthetic ideal. And it, by and large, doesn't work because biology will always win out in the end. If you're approaching anything in a way that involves you having to have a white knuckle grip on, your behaviors, it will ultimately fail because you can't maintain that as a life practice. And why would you want to? The goal is to be in a place where we really start to reframe what does it mean to be healthy? What does it mean to be fit? And this is where the piece of Ayurveda comes in so beautifully with intuitive eating, because it's all about that mind, body, spirit balance, okay? So if you're constantly on a restrictive diet and you are avoiding foods that you really enjoy, you really love, in favor of things that you actually don't, and you just kind of force them down because some expert somewhere told you they were healthy, or the answer to releasing weight, which, by the way, no such thing exists, okay? There is no one set answer for everybody. The reality is every body is different, and Ayurveda recognizes that this is the fact. We each have different needs. They're highly individual. I mean, we can look at some things as generalizations, right? And we know, okay, this is not going to be healthy. In other words, if you are eating to the point of being over full, if you are eating to the point of stuffing yourself, gorging, binging, having these kind of behaviors, automatically you are not going to be satisfied, right? You're not going to be satisfied. Is that going to be a pleasurable experience? Absolutely not. You're going to have digestive discomfort. It's going to affect your energy levels. It will likely put weight on your body that's going to compromise, the freedom of movement in your body, your endurance, just, how you feel on a day-to-day basis. So we see that even in this component right here, pleasure is such an important piece, right? Likewise, some people come to intuitive eating because they've had these overly restrictive relationships with food. They've struggled with eating disorder. Some have struggled with anorexia, and they're learning how to get back in touch with their bodies again, how to even be able to connect with this feeling of hunger and know that it's actually a call to be nourished. Some have ignored their hunger for so long that they can't even register hunger anymore. And this is a very key, important piece because to learn that it's actually this beautiful, wonderful, nourishing experience to feel that satisfaction of fullness in the belly for somebody who began to equate hunger with the desirable state of being because it meant they were in control, which is really what anorexia is about, okay? It's a lot of people misunderstand eating disorder. They misunderstand anorexia. They think anorexia is about being thin. It's not what it's about. It's actually that the emotions feel so uncontainable, all right? I really have this theory myself that those that struggle with eating disorder are highly sensitive people. They also haven't really learned solid coping skills, how to deal with their emotions, how to deal with the magnitude of that sensitivity, how to cope effectively, how to hold space for their emotions, how to get in touch with what their needs are, and how to get those needs net. Net. That's an interesting, it's sort of an interesting slip of the tongue, how to get those needs net. Yeah, how how to net them in, you know? How to gather them, and pull them in, you know, from that tide of emotion. You know, anytime you're feeling like sort of overwhelmed, you know, emotionally, when those inner seas are churning, you know, those needs may be hard for you to get in touch with, right? They get kind of scattered about. So, you know, there's a need to be able to really learn how to be in the body, be physically in the body, be grounded in the body, okay? And net in what is the true need in this moment that's coming up. You know, why am I feeling so activated? All right. A lot of times that's very difficult for somebody that is struggling with something like anorexia, and the tendency is to escape the body, because in order to feel, you have to be in body. So a lot of times what happens is the individual who struggles with eating disorder, and this can happen even if you're not anorexic, but I wanted to show the contrast between behaviors to help people understand when it comes to eating disorder, really it's all the same trip, no matter how it manifests. And I personally feel that if you are a chronic dieter, you are dealing with eating disorder. It may not be clinical eating disorder, but it is certainly EDNOS, eating disorder not otherwise specified, because it's moving you out of alignment with a healthy relationship with your body and food, and really listening to your body's needs and addressing them in healthy ways, rather than looking outside of yourself to be guided by some external authority, okay? And it takes time to heal this, but it all has the same basis, you know, as the root of that dysfunction, that imbalance. Whether you're somebody who has struggled with anorexia, you're somebody who's struggled with bulimia, you're somebody who has struggled with binge eating, you're an emotional eater, even if you're a night eater, you know, somebody who eats in their sleep. There's all different kinds of eating disorder, but the same thing is happening no matter what the situation is. Even if you're a chronic dieter, you're on every fad diet that ever comes around, you know, dropped the same 20, 30 pounds over and over and gained it back again, right? No matter where you're at or what level of the spectrum you're at in terms of having this imbalanced relationship with food, it all has the same root issue. And the same root issue is an inability to really be embodied, because when you are embodied, you really feel what you feel. You're able to understand what your body needs. You're able to respond to those needs. And when you feel overwhelmed being in your body because you never learned how to cope with your emotions in a healthy way, the tendency is to want to hit the eject button and to go into disassociative states, to quintessentially cut yourself off at the neck so you have a heady experience. Let's take it out of the emotion. Let's put it in the logical, okay? You know, and then soon you're controlling every bite of food you eat. And now you're all wrapped up in, this is the answer. This is what's going to heal me. This is what's going to get the weight off. And then when I get the weight off, then, you know, I'm going to feel better and life is going to be perfect, which is bullshit. The same problems are going to be there. You're still going to have to learn how to cope with these emotions. These emotions haven't gone anywhere. So a huge key, you know, to being able to heal eating disorder is to be able to learn how to be embodied, how to get comfortable in your body. And this is a big leap, okay? But to actually find pleasure in being embodied. It's so important. Without this piece, it really is impossible to get back to intuitive eating, because intuitive eating requires that you stay really connected to your body. Now, I must bring this up because a lot of people that have eating disorder histories have trauma histories. Is this the case in every circumstance? Absolutely not. There's always exceptions, okay? But by and large, it's pretty overwhelming. A lot of people who struggle with eating disorder have trauma histories. Some of these histories may involve abuse, and abuse of a physical nature. So again, there's kind of this programming that has been, sort of installed in the way you experience your body, that it's not pleasurable to be in your body. And in some cases, there can even be guilt about being in the body. All right. So it's so important when we're doing this work that we reclaim pleasure and that we take back that, especially if there has been a history of abuse and we learn that pleasure is bad or we feel guilty for pleasure. There is such an importance in taking back this joy of being in a body, of getting to experience all the wonders of this physical experience through all of our senses, right? Our sight, our sound, our taste, our touch, okay? So this pleasure piece is very important, very important. If we look at our relationship with our bodies, those who struggle with body image issues, those who have body dysmorphia, how often are you kind to your body? How often do you give your body pleasure? And I'm not talking about the pleasure that comes from, eating, cakes or cookies or, juicy burgers and French fries, although, those can absolutely be pleasurable things, and these do play a role in intuitive eating. But I'm talking about pleasure that goes beyond food. Do you even know what you find pleasurable? When was the last time that you touched your body in a pleasurable way? Okay, and when I'm saying this doesn't just refer to sexually, although that absolutely can be part of it, giving yourself sensual pleasure, letting yourself receive that, feeling empowered in your own sensuality, okay? But even just when you look at yourself in the mirror, when you see yourself in the mirror, how often do you acknowledge your body with something that evokes pleasure, right? Most of the time, people who have these issues, they look in the mirror and they squeeze at, where they feel they got extra fat on their body, I know that I used to do that a lot. Way back when I really struggled with food and body image issues myself, I had a history of eating disorder, and that's what inspired me to become an intuitive eating counselor. And Ayurveda is part of how I reclaimed my relationship with my body and learned how to nourish myself in a balanced way where I didn't feel deprived, but there was a time when I was constantly body checking. I was constantly looking at myself in the mirror, and I didn't touch my body in a loving way. I would grab at my waist and squeeze my fat. I would, sometimes I'd even hit parts of my body and go, look at this. There was nothing about being in my body that was pleasurable to me. And it's something that I really had to relearn, because it is our natural state of being. We don't come into this world as babies with this, abusive relationship with ourselves. We come into this world as babies and everything is a wonder and all these senses are brand new to us, and it's all just such a delight of discovery, right? Like, look at a baby's face, the first time they see color, or the first time they see an animal, or or the first time they taste something new, there's this joy, right? There's this pleasure, there's this light in the eyes, there's this smile on the face. And we don't have to lose that. Part of healing our relationship with food and our body is reclaiming that, rediscovering pleasure. The pleasure derived through our bodies, the pleasure derived through our senses. And so I really want to encourage you to take some time, take a little time, to just drop in with your body each day and think about what gives you pleasure. What gives you pleasure? Do you know? A lot of people don't know. A lot of people haven't really sat with this question. They haven't taken it to a place of internal inquiry. But I encourage you to do this, okay? You can get a nice journal where you can write about your experience. You can just jot down a list of things you find pleasurable. And these can be foods too. Think of meals that you really enjoy, foods you really enjoy, that when you eat them, you feel really satisfied, they taste really good to you, they feel good in your body, they give you energy. I call these prana foods, okay? They're foods that build up the life force, and that isn't just physically. It's like you feel satisfied on every level when you walk away from a meal like that. And some of these foods for you, your prana foods that make your body feel their best, that give you energy, that taste good, and you feel complete satisfaction when you get up from the table. A lot of these foods may be foods that, the health authorities or the diet industry has told you, well, that won't help you lose weight. You need to get out of that. You need to trust your body. That's also part of reclaiming your pleasure. It's part of being embodied, is to trust how your body is communicating to you and to learn how to respond to that in a beneficial way where those needs are getting met. It's very empowering. And when you feel empowered in your physical experience and you see the benefit of trusting your body and you address the needs it brings forward, and then you realize the payoff, wow, I do feel better. It evokes a sense of self-trust, and that self-trust makes it safe for you to be in your body. It makes you safe in feeling what you're feeling, and you're able to connect with feelings in a new way where you don't have to attach a story to them, but you can use them as informative of where you're at, and informative as to what is needed in this moment to address this need, so we can come into that place of pleasure, satisfaction, comfort in our bodies. This can apply even with difficult emotions, to learn how to be with grief. And let's say you're in that state of grief and you realize, what I really need is a good cry. I just need to cry this out. There can be pleasure in that. There can be pleasure in the release of the pain, in the letting go of the heaviness. And after you have this emotional release, without getting into the story of it, it doesn't matter. If you feel sad, you don't need to attach a reason to it. You don't need to go into the story of it. But you can understand, like, oh, I need to release this sadness. And you can release it through a song. You can release it through, going on a hike and moving your body and working it out of your tissues. You can release it through flopping down on your bed and just letting it all come out, and then taking a nice bath afterwards with some lovely mineral salts and some beautiful smelling essential oils, some ylang ylang to help you just sink into that softness, and feel the pleasure of that. How good it can feel to let go and to release that heaviness you're holding on to. So, pleasure comes through in many different ways. I encourage you, just take some time every day to close your eyes, take a few breaths, stop everything you're doing, put your hands on your tummy, make contact with your body, touch your body in a loving way. You can even put a hand on your heart, just feel how good that feels. Just try that right now. Just put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. Do you feel the way this holds space? This is like your space. And you can hold space for yourself in such a loving way by making contact with your body. This is such a loving posture. You can even give some comfort, some rubs, some love, and just close your eyes and sink into your body and just ask your body, what pleasure are you needing today? Let's experiment with this, you can use this technique in determining if you're hungry. It's great when you're coming to intuitive eating, just to get in touch with what does hunger feel like in my belly. How does my body communicate that hunger? Just by sinking in. You got to get into your body to be able to feel if you're hungry, especially if you're used to disconnecting from your hunger because you've always controlled food, right? But the same thing applies to fullness as well, Just taking that moment. Or even if you're in middle of an eating disordered behavior, like let's say you're in middle of a, emotional eating episode, just stopping in middle of it, catching yourself, stopping yourself just for a second, coming here, closing the eyes, coming into the body. What am I feeling right now? What is the real need? Because there's something that feels like it needs to be fulfilled. And that's that yearning for pleasure, that yearning for that thing that like brings the satisfaction, that brings the peace, that brings the contentment, So also intertwined with pleasure. So I encourage you to do this and make up a list. Make up a list of everything you can think of that gives you pleasure, whether it's sitting outside on a sunny day and blowing bubbles, or going for nature walks, or putting on your favorite music and dancing around your living room, or getting dressed up just because it makes you feel good. Whatever those things are, and start to bring more pleasure into your life. And when you go to make your food choices, same thing. Really start gravitating towards what gives you pleasure. Forget about, is it healthy? Is it not healthy? Your body will tell you. If you're eating something and afterwards you feel overstuffed, you feel sick, you feel nauseous, you're burping, you're belching, and you feel gassy and yucky, that's not pleasurable. Okay? It may have tasted pleasurable when you first put that bite in your mouth, but the after effect doesn't give you pleasure. So this pleasure piece is so, so, so key. All right? You can see the way it plays out on multiple layers. All right? Same thing with exercise. You have to move in a way that gives you pleasure, that you actually enjoy. And can you enjoy training? Absolutely, you can enjoy training. I'm personally in a period where I'm doing some intense training, and I actually really like it. I enjoy it. I'm feeling so good getting that strength and that endurance up. It's inspiring for me. But I'm putting the emphasis on the pleasure, okay? On the reward that, ooh, I like this. This is giving me strength. I'm improving in my athletic performance. These are the things that are giving me pleasure. That's where I'm putting my focus, not on getting to a certain size. And by all means, when you look at your body in the mirror, instead of grabbing at yourself, try even just holding that posture when you look at yourself in the mirror. And maybe just say some words of acceptance. How about starting with, I love you? it's a really good place to start. And I just wanted to bring this piece to you today, to know that you deserve pleasure. You deserve to enjoy being in this body and to celebrate the gift that it is.